724-0008. Now, some birthday wishes. For some belated birthday wishes going out to His Grace, the Archbishop of Castries, Gabriel Malze, who celebrated his birthday yesterday. So we're sending him the best of wishes of health and happiness on his very special day. Hope he is continuing to enjoy his birthday month. As well, sending some birthday greetings out to Mr. Albert Joseph. Happy birthday to you, sir. And it is World Teachers Appreciation Day. And of course, we're wishing you the very best on this very special day. You've got lots to celebrate. And so we're so very pleased that you can be here celebrating your birthday. Now, also, birthday greetings going out to another teacher, Dr. Delia Samuel. Happy birthday to you. And we do hope that you're having a wonderful birthday celebration. And of course, keep up doing all the wonderful work that you're doing for your island home, St. Lucia, in terms of the math camps that you're organizing and all the other wonderful work that you're up to. As well, sending some birthday greetings to Mr. Placid Noelia. Happy birthday to you, sir. And we do hope that you're having a splendid birthday celebration. Dr. Ashley Volney, you're celebrating your birthday today as well. Happy birthday to you, and we're wishing you a fantastic birthday celebration. And also sending birthday greetings out to Miss Safia Montrose. Happy birthday to you, and hope that you're having a wonderful day as well. A bit of history for today. In the year 1274, around 1,000 soldiers of the Mongol army landed on the Japanese island of Tsushima, and that was the first attack of Kublai Khan's Mongol invasion of Japan. In the year 1789, on this day, the French Revolution saw the women of Paris marching to Versailles, and that was to confront King Louis XVI about his refusal to promulgate the decrees on the abolition of feudalism, demand bread, and have the king and his court move to Paris. 1864 on this day saw most of Calcutta being destroyed by a cyclone. Approximately 60,000 people lost their lives. 1978 on this day, over 30 major nations ratified the Environmental Modification Convention, which prohibits weather warfare that has widespread, long-lasting, or severe effects. A bit of ironic, of course, as we right now are dealing with climate change. In 1988, Chile voted in a referendum 56-44 against extending Augusto Pinochet's regime by 8 years, thus ending the dictator's 16 and a half years in power. And on this day in the year 2000, mass demonstrations in Belgrade culminated in the resignation of Serbian strongman Slobodan Milosevic, often called the Bulldozer Revolution. And we now move on to our dish of the day. The Daily Dish is brought to you in kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. With all kind of tiles, come down to Tiles Plus. We also glad gasway and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down, don't mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Jugosile, and Slack Street in Dufort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program for today. And of course, all around the world, teachers are being honored and appreciated as it is World Teachers Day. And of course, we do know that there are a lot of days for lots of different professions and careers, but certainly teachers are one of those very fundamental professions, and it's necessary in every society. The need to be able to guide, the need to be able to pass on knowledge, the need to be able to inspire young people, children, along new paths so that they can make a contribution to their world, so that they can certainly be an active part of that world, and in very many ways, whether through their participation in society as a social being, as a human being, but certainly as well, of course, the economic importance of teachers as well in terms of providing guidance and developing skills, developing aptitudes, sharing of knowledge. So certainly really important that we continue to place teachers front and center in that continuing development agenda, which they definitely have a really, really important part to play in that regard. Of course, there are teachers from many different levels, from the preschools and individuals who also have to, of course, get involved in other things like even providing childcare and guidance, and right through the spectrum of education, from basic education through to higher education, and they all certainly do have to play a major role. And of course, in today's world, the issue of lifelong learning is very much apropos, is very much necessary, and the needs quite often to reskill and to retool and to repurpose oneself, or to have new career paths. All of these things require teachers along the way, and their role is certainly very, very important in that regard. So, of course, many accolades coming, of course, from the St. Lucia Teachers Union, one of the oldest associations around, I think from about 1936 or 37, when they were formed here in St. Lucia. And of course, many others. Of course, the government of St. Lucia is also paying tribute to teachers. Of course, our public education system is a bedrock of a lot of the teachers and teaching service that we see. But of course, there are also teachers providing services in private spheres as well, and even to some degree in terms of provision of lessons and even homeschooling as well. So certainly we want to send our best wishes to teachers as they continue to play a vital role in the education system. Now, just last week, in fact, was the anniversary of my mom's passing, and she was, in fact, a teacher for about 30 years, over 30 years. And interesting enough, I was having a look at her library, and one of the things that I found in her collection was that of report on what was called an interim report on the Committee on Educational Priorities, and that was actually coming right back to 1978, and it actually was a very interesting undertaking, looking at the education system from a very broad perspective, and it involved a number of individuals who were themselves, of course, educators, were teachers during that period of time. And what is very instructive is to looking back at a document like this, which of course is well over 40 years old now, and in fact it originally started out, I think, somewhere back in 1974 when they began looking at these issues. And many of the things that are mentioned here still have to be addressed and still are very, very much relevant in this current era of looking at education across the island and, of course, worldwide. And just to very quickly share the terms of reference for this undertaking of this committee, Reads as follows. The terms of reference outlined for the Committee on Educational Priorities in letters of invitation dated September 1974 were as follows: to examine the existing social, economic, and political conditions of St. Lucia in one, a world perspective, and two, in a Caribbean perspective, and then to prescribe the philosophy for the St. Lucian Society. Two, to examine the aims of the existing educational system in St. Lucia in relation to world and Caribbean educational systems as seen through an examination of the relevant and available literature. And then, B, to prescribe for this stage broad educational goals that are consonant with the philosophy so designed in Section 1B. 3, to suggest the subject disciplines that would facilitate the achievement of these goals of education and to specify the objectives of these subject disciplines. 4, to suggest methods of ascertaining the degree of attainment of, and looks like there might be a page missing in here somewhere, but certainly in the terms of reference, a very extensive table of contents going through a vast array of issues from the primary level, the position of primary schools and junior secondary schools outside of Castries, which was an issue at that time, no doubt, the position of primary schools students in Castries, secondary and post-secondary education, lower secondary education, and at that time the Vidbute Project School, as it was termed, was being highlighted. Junior secondary schools, senior secondary education, post-secondary education, technical education, the teaching service, educational administration, agricultural education, art and culture, other content areas, health education, curriculum and materials development, non-formal system, the informal system, and then in terms of towards a new philosophy of education for St. Lucia in the third section, the philosophy of the state, dynamism of development and change. 3.3 was love, justice, and honor, the matter of discipline. 3.4, 3.5, self-reliance. 3.6, lifelong process. 7 was educational opportunities for all. Community base, illiteracy erased as a matter of national urgency. Sociolinguistic considerations. School registration, preschool system, vocational educational, professional development of teachers, national service, manpower needs, full employment of resources, and then a list of draft recommendations on matters of preschool, primary education, physical structures, school construction, repair and school management, vocational education, agricultural education, home economics, technical education, other vocational subjects, health and physical education, religion, civics and ethics, art and culture, the Department of Culture, personnel, National Arts Council, deployment of personnel, cultural education relationship, facilities and equipment, Patois as language and cultural heritage, the cognitive skills, literature, libraries, music and art, drama, the National Cultural Center, cultural commissions, even dealt with as well things like common entrance, formal education, curriculum, evaluation and measurement, vocational guidance, junior teachers college, educational administration, and the non-formal system as well as the informal system. And the last matter was towards a nationwide learning system. And the committee at the time comprised of the following members. It in fact first held its meeting on the 7th of December 1974, and it was chaired by Dr. Joseph Edsel Edmonds. Of course, you would recall is also St. Lucia's former ambassador to Washington, D.C., a position he took up later on. Mr. Harry Atkinson, Mr. Victor A. Archer, who during that period, in fact, passed in March of 1978. And of course, this gentleman also, there's a building on the Mon at the South Louis Community College named after him. And he also, from what I recall, also served in Grenada at the Grenada Boys Secondary School there. I think there's a house named after him. Reverend Father Catty, Mr. Cornell Charles, Mrs. Patricia Charles, Mrs. Alvina George, selected representative for St. Joseph's Convent, Mr. Parry Husbands, Mr. Michael Mondesi, selected representative for St. Mary's College, Mr. Leonard Simon as secretary, and it says that 2 persons were co-opted into the committee at its inaugural meeting, Mr. Kenneth Comby, the head teacher of the Vidbote Combined School, and Mr. Ignatius Antoine, a retired head teacher of the Miku Primary School. It then also says that Mr. Kenneth Moplezi, who's still around, QC or KC, was later co-opted as a member of the main committee to replace Mr. Antoine because he had difficulties attending meetings. And Mrs. P. Charles was also appointed deputy chairman of the main committee. And of course, there were a number of subcommittees that were created dealing with agriculture and technical education, the matter of ethics and civics, comparative education, arts, crafts, and culture, primary education, secondary education as well. And a number of papers were prepared and reviewed as part of this process. And so it's a very, very interesting and extensive report, as I indicated. But what is noteworthy is that some of the issues that are still very much current today in this entire matter. And you would have heard of some of them within the table of contents that I mentioned. For instance, the matter of, what was termed then as patois was in fact a matter considered by the committee. And just to share that little section with you, it says patois as language and cultural heritage. And it reads as follows: patois should be accepted as a principal means of communication of a large percentage of our population, and it should be used in schools to explain and transmit ideas and concepts to pupils who do not speak and comprehend English as a first language. As part of our cultural heritage, patois must be preserved and developed. Avenues must be explored to having it written in a standard form and used extensively in and out of the school system. As such, it must be referred to as Creole, signifying its French connection. Now, of course, we can then think within the context of Creole Heritage Month that we actually are celebrating now. And of course, this document even predates the celebration of Journée Creole as one of the things that we use now, of course, to promote our cultural heritage. And the issue of Creole in schools still remains a matter that needs to be addressed. Now, quite recently, the parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Creative Industries, Senator Gibeon Ferdinand, did make a statement regarding the matter of the introduction of Creole in schools. It still is an outstanding matter. There have been a few steps to allow and to hopefully gain a greater level of acceptance regarding Creole, in that it's allowed within making submissions in the Parliament, in the House of Assembly, and it is we've seen some work that has been done over the years in the development of the Creole dictionaries. There was a work done by Mr. Mondesi some years ago, Dr. Mondesi, as well as some later work which was done by the Ministry of Education. I think, is it Mr. Frank out of the United States was instrumental in doing that during that period of time when Dr. Didicus Jules was the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education. And there was, in fact, a publication of that Creole dictionary. But beyond that, the matter of Creole in schools is still an outstanding matter by and large. And it is and certainly must come to the point where we are in fact ensuring that it is taught in that way. And also, of course, by being taught in all senses, being able to speak and read and write Creole. One of the matters mentioned in this piece, of course, was about the writing standard or the orthography of the language. And that has actually already been done. So that is one of the achievements, certainly, of the 1980s, that there is, in fact, a standard form for the writing of Creole. Some people may not like it, especially people out of the old school, because for many of them, it does not look like what they may have learnt in terms of the French lexicon, the French syntax. It doesn't look the same way. So so sometimes people think that it's they prefer using French, but it's not French, and so therefore that is something that has to be certainly pushed more. And of course, if it is to be used, it cannot just, as has rightfully been pointed out by the committee, writing back in 1978, that it has to be something that is in and out of school. And so the issue of whether we have a Creole newspaper or Creole news that has captioning, for instance, and people can see it in advertising, in street signage, in publications. And that is still, of course, a problem which we see quite a lot when we look at this issue of the writing of Creole. So it is something that we need to be concerned about, especially as we're talking about Creole Heritage Month, because we have seen in other parts of the Caribbean where Creole was once very much prominent, they in fact have lost a fair bit of that. In Trinidad, for instance, where it was quite prevalent, it's pretty much relegated to very, very, very tiny pockets within Trinidad, places like Paramin and so on. And so certainly it is a matter of importance. And no doubt to even somebody who's been very passionate about it, none other than Monsignor Patrick Anthony, who in fact was instrumental in establishing the Folk Research Center, which is now named in his honor. And this year, in fact, has already received another honor from the University of the West Indies Open Campus or Global Campus, as I think it's termed now. And in fact, I think today he is due to be delivering the valedictory address at that graduation ceremony for the Global Campus. And his work in particular in pushing and trying to develop and ensuring that there was that recognition of identity and protection of that has become very, very important. St. Lucians love to speak Creole when they are on the subways in New York and they're driving and they're meeting other St. Lucians overseas, wherever they may be. But it is certainly something that we have to ensure that our young people who are coming up right about now see that it is in fact an important part of who they are and their identity. And speaking on that matter, just another example of one of the areas that had been covered by this report from 1978 was the matter of a national cultural center. And, well, let's face it, we still don't actually have a proper national cultural center. But this is what the report says on this matter. This National Cultural Center should represent the home for national culture. This center must be the hub of all cultural activity, containing theater, museums, etc., where people can, quote unquote, see their culture through performances at the theater in the form of artifacts in museums or any preservation depicting our cultural heritage. This national center should provide the medium through which the arts can reach the wider community outside the school system. The National Cultural Center must not be developed in isolation. there is need for concomitant development of centers in out districts, communities, in order to avoid a widening of the gap between culture at the community level and the proposed National Cultural Center. And of course, you can think to today, and the challenge of still having that home for culture is still very much a missing element for our society. We saw the creation of a temporary facility at Barnard Hill, I think back in the 1980s, or was it around 1984 or thereabouts? Somebody will be able to correct me on that one. But with some support, I think, from the French government for what was really supposed to have been a temporary facility. And we can see how even that has lasted almost 40 years now. And we are still not at a point where we actually have, as a country, such a facility that is perhaps befitting of an island that was able to produce the likes of the Walcott brothers and so many others, Jakes Compton and Dunstan St. Thomas and so many others who've gone through the years. And so that matter is really important. But of course, it was very clear that from this that the intent was not merely for it to be just a performing arts center, but it was also supposed to be a place of a complete understanding of identity. From, yes, the cultural and performing arts aspect, but as well the visual aspects of it, the appreciation of artifacts, the appreciation of having a museum, to understand that aspect of it and to see the progression and evolution of art and how people lived in the past. And so that, of course, was also a very, very important aspect of this overall thrust towards enshrining culture within the education sphere. Now, of course, at some point in time, of course, education was also aligned at a ministerial level with culture. It's not so today, but in many international organizations that liaison still very much exists. And so it is certainly very important that the education space is one of celebration of art. It's one that it is not merely about what we consider the pure academics, but certainly to be an area where people can see that they've got to be using all sides of their brain, and the importance of art and the importance of culture within this space is very, very important. And just a third one I just wanted to share before we end our dish of the day, another excerpt from this report, as I mentioned, on educational priorities from the 1970s, the matter of national service. And I think just yesterday we were having this conversation about the challenges of people identifying with their country, seeing that they have a responsibility to protect and conserve that country, whether it might be in terms of how they be stewards for the environment, how they would refrain from littering, and if in fact there is garbage that they would be engaged in things like cleanups, like coastal cleanups, which we were just noting over the past week. And the issue of a national service has been around for quite some time, as we can well appreciate. It's not a new concept, but it is a concept that we still have not been able to enshrine within our education service and education system. And this report says the following on national service. A voluntary national service program involving all sectors of the community and starting at 8 years of age is proposed, whereby students are encouraged at an early age to make a contribution to their community and to the state and participate in nation building while at the same time developing attitudes and aptitudes. National service should involve all schools in well-defined projects annually when school classes or forms perform tasks which will progress in complexity or involvement as students progress through the system. As an integral part of the school curriculum, the world of study and the world of work become integrated as part of the developmental attributes of students, allowing for aptitudinal identification where possible. Voluntary national service at the post-formal level is also envisaged, together with involvement of persons with knowledge and experience. Opportunities for organized national contribution can be mobilized. And it's very nicely spelled out here, and how it can work and how it should involve pretty much the entire education system, formal education system, and certainly how it should go beyond the walls of schools and the traditional system as well. And it is certainly still one of these outstanding matters regarding that of education and our school system, our education system. We have, of course, made significant progress by way of education over the decades. There's no doubt about that. At the time when this committee met and considered a number of things, we've seen a lot of progress in terms of making education more accessible and universal. And we've seen great strides in that regard, for instance, in the achievement of universal secondary education. That, of course, has been a major shift from the 1970s, where you still had, no doubt, perhaps certainly less than half of everybody in the system would not have actually got on to a secondary school. But we certainly do have some gaps that have to be filled. We have some valleys that need to be crossed, and no doubt on either end, whether it might be at the end of with the starting points in terms of early childhood development and ensuring that there is greater access and quality of access at the early childhood development level, but also on the higher education level as well. The Minister of Education has also made certain pronouncements regarding the expansion of vocational education and the importance of having to bring that more into the mainstream. That's really, really important at this point in time, especially if we are going to be shifting towards ensuring that our education system has more direct relevance and connectivity with the labor market in particular, and to ensure that people have the skills that they need to be able to achieve just that. Now, that's our dish of the day. When we come back, we're going to head into our weather report, and then we'll come back to take in some calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. With all kind of tiles, come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down, don't mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Jugosile, and Slack Street in Dufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
And, of course, we're going to head across at this time to take in our weather report. Of course, it's really important to note what is going on in that Atlantic. We are into that period, which is really when we're supposed to be getting the most rainfall here in St. Lucia. I'm not too sure if we really are getting as much rainfall as we need or as we should get, but we'll be finding out some of those details from Maureen at this time.
Thank you so much, Calixte. It's now time for our latest weather report as of 12 noon today. It is brought to you with the compliments of Island Style, Thailand Bath and Flow.
St. Lucia, the best diesel tires.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. And it's about 22 minutes to go before the hour of 2 o'clock. Of course, we're going to open up the phone lines at this time. The number to call in is 4523046. And you can also message in or call in to our WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. Let's go to the phone lines at this time. Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom.
Good afternoon, Mr. George.
How are you doing, caller?
Not too bad.
Wonderful.
Now, listening to you, it brings back memory. Because I remember when I was growing up in Castries, a lot of people speak. Most people, from the time you leave Castries, going anywhere in the country, they all speak Creole. So I don't know how they learn the English, where they learn it, but they all nearly, you go in the country, anywhere you go, is English. They'll speak.
You mean Creole?
Creole. Now, you find a lot of...
Sorry, caller, you're breaking up. Could you repeat that, please?
Hello?
Yes, we're listening. We're hearing you now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, a lot of these things you talk about, we had it here in St. Lucia. It's since independent, we lost it. We get independent, and when you see 24 of May to see the amount of brownie and cubs and scout and sea scout, all those people, plenty of them on the square. That was where right now there is a Walcott Square.
Right.
We used to call it Columbus Square, and so much of them, and all on a sudden, everybody, we get independence and everybody draw out from that. All we know is English. And people laugh at you sometimes. I remember a boy in Yarra School. Well, I don't know where he had come from, but not in Marshall. And his hair was naughty. So the teacher said, "Boy,
sorry, caller, we're not getting everything that you're saying. I'm not sure. Could you just repeat that part?
Yeah, okay, I'll say that. I said a young boy.
Yes.
In the RC Boys School.
Yes.
Yeah, one day the teacher looked at him and he had naughty hair. So the teacher said, "Boy, why don't you comb your hair?" And he said, "Sir, I comb him, but him melee." You heard that one?
I get you.
I comb him,
yes,
but him melee. You're supposed to say, "Sir, I comb it."
Yes.
And it tangle.
Yes.
But he say, "Sir, I comb him, but him melee."
Right.
That is a piece of Creole he put in front of the horse there. And the children watch and they watch, and as soon as school over and he reached Brazil Street outside, everybody, I comb him, but him melee.
Oh no.
I'm in a pier with him. You know pier? Publicity stamps. That is a pier. They have him a pier because he said, "So I comb him, but him melee." Him is somebody. So I comb it to name anything. You see? But he didn't even get there, but the children know. All of them wait until he reached in the street and they start giving him and calling him names. See, in Castries, you like that. You know what he used to call you?
Sorry, caller, I think you broke up a little bit again. Could you just say that again? What are you asking?
Castries.
Yes.
When you will put a piece of English like that, I call him and him melee. Then they will call you okay.
Sorry, I didn't catch the last part of what you said.
Country bookie.
Well, that is still a phrase that is very popular up to recent. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Bookie. That's how they used to call.
Lots of derogatory terms. Yes.
The majority of people in St. Lucia is Creole.
Yeah.
You go there, you go Besso, or everybody there is Creole they used to speak. Is one or two, well, in the town self, and even in town, most of the people come out from Castries,
Right.
in town, in Castries, and it's Creole they used to speak.
Mm-hmm. But Caller, I'm sure if there's a survey done now, or it's unfortunately I don't think it's part of the census collection, but I'm sure if there's a survey done on language use currently in St. Lucia, I suspect we will find that Creole might very well be in a minority.
Yeah.
And it's something that we've got to be mindful of, that again, especially amongst the younger generation, you're seeing a lot fewer people understanding, a lot fewer people speaking. So the fluency drops. You find a lot of loan words being used, more English coming in for it. And then, of course, you have the reverse of his experience. People might just add in a Creole word here or there, but it's largely English. So that's something that we need to be very concerned about.
That's Creole. We don't speak Creole. We don't speak proper Creole.
But Caller, I mean, it's a journey that a lot of places have dealt with, and even in Europe, for instance, it's even in as nearby to England as Ireland, they have had significant challenges. Wales, Scotland, because they had their own Celtic languages, which were suppressed, and they've now, and of course they see it as a really important part of their own identity. Welsh and
back the language in school in the 70s.
Precisely, and Gaelic, and so it is
Gaelic and Gaelic.
Yes, and so it's really important. Even in, I think, the Isle of Man, for instance, they have their own language as well. So it's an important step that countries do need to sometimes take. That look, we've been through this situation we seem to have lost that call, unfortunately. But of course, we have another one coming. Oh, it looks like we dropped that one on okay, they are calling back again. Let's try to get that one in on our feed. Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi.
I'd like to mention a couple of things.
Yes, sure, please. Thanks, caller.
One was a cultural foundation. My dad had mentioned this on the last time that he was on your program, and which was in July of this year.
Yes, indeed. And you're referring to, for those who don't know, you're referring to your dad, Mr. Harold Beausoleil.
That is correct.
Yes.
Very proudly referring to him. The other thing that you mentioned about volunteer hours.
Yes.
They have volunteer hours in Maryland. You need to have 70 volunteer hours for you to actually graduate from high school. Mm-hmm. The way it's done is that there are programs that are certified, and you have to get into those programs, whether it be providing lunches to the poor. Mm-hmm. What my sons have done, they have different school activities, so they will have to set up or clean up or tear down, provide registration for those people who are coming in to that activity. So my son, last time they had an international fair, and so he set up with a few other friends. And then at the end of it all, you get a paper stating how many hours that you worked. Mm-hmm. So it's something that has to be registered. And you can't just say, well, I'm going to go and cut the grass on the side of the road in front of my house and say, well, these are my volunteer hours. It has to be a systematic procedure for government, and not just something that people can just get hours.
Precisely. It has to be very, very well structured.
It's normally a structured program.
They normally term it as co-curricular credits. So you actually part. It's something that is considered not in the mainstream. It's not a traditional curriculum, but it's things that you can engage in, maybe through your environmental club, or maybe through maybe a Kiwanis group, and a number of these clubs would then, if you're a member of them, then they also can assist in terms of registering the number of hours that you may have been
Hours
engaged
that you were, yes.
that you were actually
For
participating
sure.
in. And of course, it's really important for moving beyond college or university. Quite often, many of these universities are looking to see how active you were beyond just the academics. So,
beyond just what you have to do for your school as well. So
Exactly.
even if you need 70 hours and you did 150, I have a friend of mine, her daughter did her 70 hours for summer and is now and she's only in middle school.
Wow.
So she's right now looking to see how many more hours that she can get because, she has a love for it. So it becomes from a requirement to a love to
Right.
help and,
Right.
and see what happens at the end of the day. You have helped somebody. And the problem I have with St. Lucians, and it's a lot of them, is that they have a me type of mindset. Okay, let me see what I can do for me or my family, my children, without saying, okay, well, this person needs this. Let me help them out. I don't get that a lot for people, or maybe it's just a certain set of people, I don't know. But I'm just saying, this is how I feel about a lot of people that live in St. Lucia. It's a me. I don't know if you've ever watched Finding Nemo, and you have the birds like mine.
Yes.
That is the mindset
Yeah.
of a lot of St. Lucians. The other thing I would like to mention is that my nephew says he's doing 13 or 16 subjects
Okay.
in Form 2.
Yes. That actually, I suspect, is depending on the school that you're in, somewhere around Form 2 or Form 3 before you actually select your CXC subjects. You sometimes often end up in these situations where you're doing a heap load of subjects. So I suspect maybe that might be his situation right now. So it's been the norm for. I think in some instances, some schools will divide it up. So they'll do some subjects in maybe half of the year, and then in the other half of the year they'll actually do the other set. So I'm not sure if precisely how his school is working it out, but it is fairly common, I think, around Form 2, Form 3, when you end up doing a lot of subjects before you actually. So that I suppose they want to see how your aptitude in these respective subjects before you can actually select them. That's the thinking.
But I don't know how that works. I mean, people are great at memorizing work. I don't have that ability to memorize anything. But if I understand it, then I understand it for life.
Right.
But they would memorize something for them to pass an exam.
Right.
And the problem you get is that when you go to A level, or when you go to college or university in the States and England, they don't want to know if you memorize something. They want to know if you understand it.
No, you're
So
very
if
correct. Yeah, and I mean,
how does this apply beyond the definition of something? How does that go on beyond that point? They need to know your critical thinking. How can you think beyond a definition? And that is the problem people have when they go to the States. It depends on the school that you go to as well, because yes, they do have zone schooling in the States, and you can go to a very low school or you can go to a very high level education school. But at the end of the day,
well, you're very correct. I mean, that is where the premium is today, especially that you want to be able to show that people can think critically, that they can be creative, that they can multitask, and they can look at bringing a lot of different various disciplines together, be multidisciplinary. And that is where the premium is these days, as opposed to the learning by rote, by memory, which is still what obtains, especially in a lot of Asian countries, in Korea, in China. They're still very much big on memorizing and repetition and learning by rote. It's really important for them still. But you are seeing that a lot of
I don't want to say anything bad about China, but I mean,
I know, but
repetition works for China.
Mind you,
because
because when you look at a lot of these world examinations,
the products. Yeah. Well, not the examinations. I'm looking at the products that they
there's that too.
Assemble. It works well for that, and each country has its thing.
Right.
We were in Florida.
That's a good point.
One state would push a certain level of education. Another state would push a different level of education because, this works for this state or this works for this country. St. Lucia has no idea what works for them because they're still trying to figure it out.
Well, it's interesting that you're saying so, Paula. It's a very interesting point that you're raising because, I remember when there was this whole thing about the European Partnership Agreement, European Partnership Agreement, this trade arrangement with Europe. And the big question is, well, okay, what is the Caribbean going to be able to have an advantage in terms of trading with this massive block of 400 million people that is Europe? And we kept on saying, what we heard quite often was that, well, the Caribbean has advantages in the creative industries, right? But then when you actually look at the content of our curriculum by way of creative industry, it's not there at all. It's really not there. I mean, it's gotten a lot better. You've got a few things now. But
you mentioned a while ago about the arts. And I have to say that, there are a few people at the convent when I went that would have been able to be doctors because of their grades. But one did dance, another one did interior design or decorating. And beyond, once you leave St. Lucia, there are more professions out there than just being a doctor, an accountant, or a business person or an engineer. So, to look at the arts, you have to look at the arts as not a career or a degree. It might be a little.
We're losing out. We're definitely losing out on a substantial opportunity for a lot of people who are really naturally gifted, and very many of them. But I mean, they could go even so much further. With that kind of arts education, with that type of training. So, we certainly have to think a lot more about ensuring that those opportunities are there. Vocational education, that's another major one that we still have a long way to go. And
Daddy mentioned that, and you had a full conversation with Daddy as well.
Indeed.
Yes. My last point before I leave, teachers and lessons. In Virginia and Maryland, if you teach a class, you cannot give lessons to anybody in your class. Paid lessons. It has to be free.
Okay.
If you charge that person, you can lose your license. And that, for me, would give teachers a push in the right direction. If I cannot get money from tutoring from my class, I have to be the better teacher or the best teacher, and that will draw people to me. So they'll give teachers a more, competitive edge.
Yeah, I take the point too, because I mean, you don't want to have a situation where the teacher is not really pushing themselves in the classroom with the expectation that, you're going to have to take lessons anyways. So
lessons from me after. So
So
pay me my money.
Yeah, that becomes a problem in so many issues. In a way, it's kind of what we're hearing the accusations regarding passports and getting passports. Why can't I get a passport within the amount of time that I'm supposed to get it? Well, maybe because some people want to charge money for to do something else on the outside, and that's a real risk. Yes, that if you're providing this service, as a teacher, yes, you definitely need to ensure that you're doing your best. And I think that might be something that we have to look at too. This issue of lessons is really important for a lot of teachers. And I do believe too.
Of course, that money is important to a lot of teachers because they don't get what they deserve at the end of the day in terms of salary. And this is a worldwide problem. It's not just for St. Lucia. It's throughout.
Exactly.
But it's important that you have that competitive edge and you have teachers who are actually saying, okay, well, I'm going to teach my class, and my class, I get 80%, 85 or 95% of my children go to the school of their choice. Mm-hmm. And that's another problem I have with Common Entrance.
Yep.
And one teacher mentioned to me, well, I have to leave, but one teacher mentioned to me that when we were going for Common Entrance, I can't remember the name of it right now, they had 5,000 children going for sitting Common Entrance.
Right.
Now they have 2,000.
Yes.
We have to look at population.
It's a big problem.
And beyond.
Indeed.
It's a problem.
Thanks very, very much for raising those very excellent points. Take care and have a great one. And of course, we're pretty much almost out of time. I don't know if we'll be able to squeeze in any more calls, but the number is 4523046. I know this is a matter that no doubt is very passionate, very important for a lot of people. The matter of our education system and what's on offer. And it is sometimes a very difficult thing to change because it's so complex. There's so many different ideas out there as to what is the right way and what, who's doing what right. And should we be looking at the Finnish system, and should we be looking at what they do in Korea, and should we be looking at what they do in the United States and in the UK, and also to realize that usually what it is in very many instances is that at least people are moving forward, right? They're making changes. So even the system that we may have adopted from the United Kingdom many, many, many decades before is not even really what truly applies and how it's put forward at this point in time. So we definitely have to be discriminating about the system and looking at it and critical about it to see where changes can be made, where there needs to be overhaul, and certainly we do need to be willing to go down that route. But of course, we'll have to continue that conversation, hopefully, maybe tomorrow for another program here of the Luncroom, God willing. Hope you can join us for that. I'm your host, Calixte George Jr., saying goodbye.